And sometimes people think they can just start coasting, but then once they start coasting, it's just downward spiral from there.
Yes, yes, you just nailed it. You nailed it. Scott, pleasure, pleasure.
Pleasure to meet you as well. Thank you so much for joining us here on the Bullet Wealth Podcast. How's your day going?
My day's going fantastic. You know, I wake up every day feeling pretty darn good because, you know, you get one life to live and you might as well seek to live the most fulfilling and enriching life possible and surrounding yourself with good people. I mean, I think what you're doing here is fantastic. You're bringing a lot of different knowledge-based people in on different platforms and allow so many people to get something to hold on to, something to hope for, right? Because as human beings, we always feel our very best when we're contributing to something worthy and something wholesome.
Yes.
And we all want to grow. We want to grow in the business world and in life. And so, yeah, awesome.
Yeah. And I didn't even know where to begin with you because you help people with sports performance, team building, sales training. So what's kind of the one commonality between those three different verticals?
Well, let me step back for a little bit, give you a little bit of my background so people out there have a better idea of where I get my energy, where I get my purpose from. Right.
Yeah.
So I was a former college wrestler. I wrestled on the NCAA Division II level. And I was a big, solid 118-pound wrestler back in the day in 1981. And then in 1982, I won a national college boxing championship at 112 pounds. It was all the top clubs throughout colleges. And so got to fight back in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. That was great. So I use a lot of my sports background, which is very similar. And actually, I pull from those resources so that I use that in the business world. So I have the pleasure every month and a half to 2 months, I go into California for business and I go see Team Alpha Male, the MMA fighters out there, UFC fighters. That's where I met Dave. And Dave, I always remember Dave with that big smile, good energy. And that's what Uriah Faber, who owns Ultimate Fitness, a great leader, empowers people. So every time I come in, he says, Dan, come on in. You share some of your energy and positivity. And I do that. And that's what I like the most. And I want to keep people always learning and growing and developing because I think the biggest obstacle for people in their lives is that fear factor. The what if, and what if I try this and I fail? What if I do this and I'm embarrassed? Well, I can tell you this much. When I was on the wrestling mat and I was in the ring, I was embarrassed. Yeah. I was disappointed, right? And so there's far more failures than there are successes. And on that subject, I think with my background of sports, it's allowed me to get back into the ring, get back onto the mat in the business world so that there's always something new. There's always another opportunity to shine brighter than the noonday sun. And so that's how I go about hopefully empowering other people to see themselves better than they are, because there's a lot of potential in people, Scott. I mean, you're dealing with it in your business. You got your business underway, like really solid with your partner in 2014. And I'm sure you had some of those same thoughts. The toughest conversations we ever have really are with ourselves.
Yeah.
If we can beat ourselves, oh man, there's a lot to accomplish in life. And so, I learned through my background that, hey, you're going to fail sometimes and you're going to succeed. Now, I think it's tougher. In my opinion, it's tougher to deal with success than it is failure.
Really? Why do you think that?
Yeah, because here's what happens to most people that are having a tremendous amount of success is this thing called complacency sets in. Maybe they feel they arrived and, oh boy, I finally hit my goal. Sort of like Simon Sinek's book, The Infinite Game. you really never arrive. This is a continuous improvement. You know, businesses are always trying to bring the right people into their company uh, and flourish in the company. And, it's a challenge, right? So if you're having a lot of success, you've got to continue to develop and expand beyond your current capacities. And if you don't, complacency is like a boa constrictor. It slowly suffocates any future achievements. So they say complacency is the thief, and it is a thief of all future achievements.
And sometimes people think they can just start coasting, but then once they start coasting, it's just downward spiral from there.
Yes, yes, you just nailed it. You nailed it. And that is I'll tell you, that is a seminar in itself. How to handle success versus failure. I think failure really are the future casted stepping stones for future successes.
Mm-hmm.
And one can't really appreciate what they have now until they know where they've been. And so when I speak to a lot of teams and athletes, what are you doing today? John C. Maxwell says, today's agenda determines tomorrow's success, and how true that is, right? If we dwell too much on the past, gain some wisdom from it, but today matters the most. And you have a choice. We all have a choice to do something about it. So, and that's all inside of us.
And how do people handle the successes? Say, especially like we work with some Olympic athletes, or we work with people in these different fields, and they train for 4 years for this one event that might take 2 minutes, and they might do like 3 runs of 2 minutes. But then once you're done with that, it's like, now what? Like, how do you handle that?
Okay, that's great topic, because I know from the sales world that I'm in, I learned many years ago. It took me about 7 years, maybe 8, to truly grasp it. Win a sale, get excited, income coming in. You're like, wow, this is awesome. This is a great feeling. And then all of a sudden, you're dwelling on it too long and you're forgetting about the next one, right? You're forgetting, instead of continuing that momentum, when Big Mo shows up, a lot of great things happen. You get that momentum and you keep going. So again, I think the biggest key is to enjoy the victory, but not for too long. Get right back into the mode and say, I'm getting back after it. Fresh start. So I'm in the machine tool industry too. So I sell capital equipment. And these pieces of equipment cost $100,000, $200,000, $500,000. So you don't sell one every day. And you got to stay consistent with your plan, your routines, your formulas, right? And that is the art of sales, right? How do you get attention? How do you build interest and create a desire, paint a picture for the client?
So you kind of create that process around that, and you stay consistent with it, kind of regardless of whether you just sold a machine that morning or whether you haven't sold one in 10 days. You kind of have that same routine.
That's correct. And that's what life really is. It's patterns and routines, right? We set those up. And the biggest factor in that is to stay disciplined on those habits. And if there's one thing I learned from athletics, is consistency and discipline to the habits, to the formula. And so this recipe of getting excited, listen, I'm big time into celebrating. I got that positive energy. I love it. And that's how I feed off life, is that you get a victory, you enjoy it. Again, not for too long. Get right back onto it and keep the momentum going, and stay confident and positive, right? And the only time we lose confidence as individuals, Grant Cardone said it best one time. He says, we lose confidence when we don't keep promises to ourselves. So you're either expanding or you're contracting. And here we are, right? In the sales world, it's intoxicating. You know it, right? When you gain a new client or a big company that you've been working with, you get it. Hey, get it, enjoy it, and then continue to develop them. Say thank you, show gratitude. Like today in my life, when I talk to clients, I thank them for the business they gave me 20 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and it's amazing. They'll go, Danny, that was 20 years ago. And I said, hey, I don't know if you truly realize how awesome that was when I came home that day and said to my wife, we earned some business today. So you helped put food on my family's table. I appreciate
Yeah.
that. And we get back to the human level, right? Because we are dealing with humans. We are creatures of emotion. And there's no greater feeling for me to empower people to see themselves and others better than they are.
Mhm.
That's an amazing feeling. And really to just keep growing in my industry, learning as much as I can, always being the student. And that's my recommendation for everybody is school never gets out.
Oh,
School never gets out.
Kaizen.
Yeah. Ed Milet, Ed Milet is one of the influencers. He used
Who
to
is that?
be Ed Milet,
Oh, it sounds familiar, but no, I don't
Mylett.
know.
Yeah, he was the former, I think, owner of World Financial Group. And
Okay.
yeah, if you check him out, he's an interesting guy. And he says, you know, you've got to expand yourself beyond your current capacity. And that's a stretch. Now, I came up
Mhm.
one day, I was just driving around and on my business, and I'm like, okay, I know what this is all about. We're human rubber bands. That's what we are. We stretch, we stretch, we stretch. We get to an area of growth, and then that rubber band snaps. And then you just get a bigger rubber band and a bigger one and a bigger one. And so that's where the growth is, right? Hitting a goal is amazing, but it's what you had to become in the process of achieving it is where the greatest treasure lies. Because in order to achieve something you've never achieved before, you're going to have to become someone you've never been before.
And so it sounds like you're kind of a believer of we need to set those goals outside of our current comfort zones to really
That's
push
right.
ourselves to get out and snap that rubber band and then get on to the next rubber band.
Scott, you nailed it. I love it. Thank you. Yeah, that's the message I really love. If anybody gets anything out of this podcast today, it's take yourself to areas you've never been before, because that's where you're going to find out what you're all about. Albert Einstein said one must develop an instinct as to what one could barely achieve through one's greatest efforts. Now, the key word here is barely, and this comes from a book written by Daniel Coyle called The Little Book of Talent.
Oh yeah.
And yeah, if you stretch that book, he also wrote a book called The Talent Code. But when you stretch yourself right there, like the greatest athletes in the world, like you said, they get 2 minutes to perform. Oh my gosh, they've worked 10, 15 years, 8, whatever, for this one moment, right? This one moment. And that's it. That's it. And so they've learned in those training rooms to view, and we should do this as business people too, to view practice as the big game, like it's a real game. There's a great book. It's right behind me up there. You'll see it on the shelf there. It's called Empires of the Mind, written by Dr. Dennis Waitley. Now, Dr. Dennis Waitley was a sports psychologist for a lot of the Olympic teams. And I believe that was during even the late 80s and early 90s. And he would do studies on the top performers, those Olympic athletes you're talking about, the gold medalists. And what he found was that they would literally visualize. This is what they do. They go, let's say, for example, you go in your garage, you put a podium up, you stand on the number one spot, you're playing the national anthem, you got the music going in the background, and you're visualizing them putting that medal around your neck. And you're like, oh, and you got your hand on your chest and you're thinking of your family and your friends and all those people that supported you. And they would visualize success. And so the key quote in that whole book that stood out to me more than anything is who you see is who you'll be.
Who you see is who you'll be. That is good.
Yeah. That one. And that one has stayed with me forever, like the Sandlot thing, forever, and still motivates me today, still inspires me today.
And you mentioned the books behind you, and you have a lot of good ones here. You have the Tim Ferriss, Tribes of Mentors, Good to Great, Great by Choice.
Oh,
Out
yeah.
of all of these, which one kind of, if someone was going to read one of these books, or you mentioned Simon Sinek, Grant Cardone, 10X, if
Yeah.
someone's just looking to start a business, get started, what would the first book you would recommend for them to read be?
Oh boy. Oh boy. Now, this book's not even up here right now. I got it in actually, I was studying from it the last couple of days over and over and over again. It is my all time favorite. And I don't know if it's because it was one of the first books I grabbed. And believe me, there is a litany of books that are phenomenal. And you mentioned a lot of them there. But No Excuses by Brian Tracy.
I've seen it. I haven't read it.
It is one of the best uh, books on the subject of discipline and the power of discipline. You know, the late Jim Rohn said, discipline weighs ounces, regret tons. And that's something that, no pun intended, weighs on me every day, is that, do something that moves you a little bit closer to what you want to accomplish in life, or helping others. And I think the best way to get what you want in life is to help somebody else get what they want
Is
first.
is he kind of a Jocko vibe, where it's just like get up,
he is
do it?
tough. He
Yeah,
was tough. He's tough. Now Brian was real popular, and still is. You'll find him. You'll find him online and all. But uh, I just like that book because it really holds you accountable. I like a Jocko. Jocko holds you accountable,
yeah,
right? The Navy, the SEALs are tough. They just
yeah.
they live a disciplined life. They're tougher than nails, and you want them on your team. Trust me, you want them on your team. But yeah, Brian, No Excuses, Brian Tracy. But
No
one of the
excuses.
favorite books was um, uh, um, um, Great by Choice by Jim Collins.
Yeah, that was a good one.
That taught me so much. Like I was in 2000, I think I got that book in about 2014. It was the best year I ever had financially in my business world. And things were going great, because I was working with a lot of machine tool clients in the oil and gas industry. And that book gave me a good understanding of sticking to things that you do really, really well. Because the companies that he talked about in that book, Amgen, Biomet, Intel, Microsoft, Progressive Car Insurance, Southwest Airlines, Stryker Medical, those companies didn't have a lot of layoffs. They didn't jump into areas that they were not comfortable, that they didn't have any, let's say, knowledge about. They were making a lot of money. Some people just throw stuff on the wall. Let's see if it sticks with another industry. Well, they were focused on honing in on what they did best, and they left the others to the rest. And I like that. So when I think
That
of
is good.
athletics, yeah. So stop and think about this. My focus when I was wrestling and my focus in boxing was keep your eye on the prize. Keep your eye on the prize. There's a target. Put the combinations together. All your training. Trust your training and trust your coaches. And I say that for anybody. You have a team that you're building there. They need to trust you and trust the training. And that's the art of great leaders, right? You're a leader in your organization. You got a partner. You guys are leaders. You want to attract the best people in the industry.
Yeah.
And the best way to be successful in life, and this is another one from Jim Rohn. I love it. Success is what you attract by the person you become. Ponder that thought for a little bit.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So kind of the man in the mirror, and just
Yeah,
looking within and is focusing on that, and then attracting more of that.
I agree, Scott. Perfect. Yep.
Man, this is good. And there's so many different places. And have you read Speed of Trust by Stephen Covey? It seems like we're touching on that topic a lot too, where it's just really telling yourself these promises, like I am going to wake up at 7, I am going to wake up at 7, and then waking up at the time you tell yourself, and then building trust with yourself first, and then that kind of can be passed on to others to trust you as well.
I have to read that.
Yeah, that's a really good one.
You.
It's kind of, we touch on that subject a lot today.
One of the things that when I was at Team Alpha Male, during my talk sometimes, as I said, one of the biggest keys is, can you count on yourself to get the job done? Can I count on myself today to do what I intended to do? And we know in the sales world, that's a very difficult thing to do. And this is where the art of discipline comes in. This is why I like Brian Tracy a lot, is that here's what sales is. Jordan Belfort talked about it. The Wolf of Wall Street, right? He said, you got to prospect, you got to follow up, and you got to block out time. You got to block out time to do that. Now, that's a discipline. So even later today, I'm going to block out 2 hours of time, and I'm just going to call clients, call my customers. Some of the best sales tools we have in our arsenal is our existing clients.
And so if we could just leave the listeners today with one piece of advice, what would it be? The number one, and let's say that there's someone just looking to start their own business. They're just getting out there. What's like the biggest piece of advice that you would leave them with?
The biggest piece of advice is work harder on yourself than you do anything else.
Yeah.
And you'll be that much better for everyone else and anything else. You've got to work harder on yourself. You have to. And that's where it begins. Because, and I'll finish with this, personal growth is a prerequisite for professional growth. And professional growth embodies two major things: teamwork and leadership. And every great leader, he or she, could have never been the respected leader that they are or were if they hadn't first been a great teammate, learning to work cohesively, getting through the conflict, working through things, and getting better at it. And that all stems from their being a student, working hard on themselves. There you go.
I love it. Well, yeah, and thank you so much for taking some time today. Where can people find you if they want to learn more?
Thank you very much. They can go to Dan Prado CEO, and you'll see. You punch that in. I've got a little website, and I've got I do a little Instagram thing. I always do something motivating, a short little 30-second clip, or a couple pictures. I tell a story, and everybody's story to me is interesting. So I'm always learning something. I went through Bullet Wealth and checked out some of the podcasts you had and learned from a few of the people there. And I'm going to go through more. I'm excited about it. And I'm really honored. Well, thank you for having me on. It's been a privilege. I love your energy. I can just see it in your face. I love the, sometimes words don't have to come out. You can see the expression on somebody. You can see the energy on someone. So, and you've got it. And I catch that.
Oh, well, thank you so much. No, we appreciate you, and we'll talk again soon, I'm sure.
I hope so. Look forward to it. Until then, keep on winning in the game of life, okay?
All right, will do. You too.